I know it was you, Fredo. I know it was you. Hooah! The Godfather Part II, released in 1974, and is directed by Francis Ford Coppola, who has also directed such films like The Godfather and The Godfather Part III. And this film is starring Al Pacino, Diane Keaton, Robert Duvall, Talia Shire, Morgana King, John Cazale, Mariana Hill, Lee Strasberg, and Robert De Niro, playing the young version of Vito Corleone from the first movie. And the reason why we're talking about The Godfather Part II today is because it was a PayPal recommendation and donation from one of my longtime contributors and supporters of this channel, Dr. Camp. You strike again. You sent in the recommendation for this entire trilogy that I haven't seen in many years and are widely regarded as like the best trilogy, or at least the best two films of a franchise ever. This one is considered to be one of the best sequels of all time, and I would definitely give it to that. This film is quite spectacular, just like the original Godfather film is. I'm thinking I'm leaning more towards the original Godfather being superior to this one, but who knows? My mind might change while I review this thing. I don't know. It's kind of where I go back and forth between these two. These films are quite excellent. Michael Corleone has recently taken control of the Corleone mob crime family and is on a mission to make the family a legitimate business. But in order to become legitimate, he does have to get his hands dirty and make very suspicious and questionable deals with local mob bosses and drug dealers. And along the way, he has to deal with backstabbing, family betrayals, and tough decision on how to carry out the punishment for those who cross him. And coinciding with this story is the tale of young Vito Corleone, from a young little boy coming over here to the States and establishing himself in the New York community as the head of a new crime association, the Corleone family. And that story is what makes this film so excellent. We have two parallel stories going in two different directions. We have the story of Vito Corleone as a young little boy coming over here to the States and figuring out how things work and seeing other crime bosses in the area and the injustices that they do to people, and how he takes them out and establishes his own little family to help people in the neighborhood. So we see the rise of power of the Corleone family, and we see the rise of the love and of his family and his children loving each other and becoming a family together. But then we also see Michael Corleone, who is already the Godfather, starting at the top of this little peak, and the rest of this film is just his slow descent from the top of that mountain and going all the way down into madness and into darkness, where Michael Corleone finds himself completely alone. We see the creation and the establishment of a family, and we also see how that family slowly dissolves and decays, and it becomes one person at the very end of the film. That is why this movie is so excellent. The parallels there, it's just beautiful to see. It's told in a non-linear structure. We start off with Michael Corleone, then we have slow dissolve transitions back to Sicily, and we see a young little boy. Then we see that transition from the young little boy into a young little Robert De Niro, which is very weird, seeing both Robert De Niro and Al Pacino very young in this movie. You forget that they were once young. I just know them as old grumpy men who are in a couple of mob movies nowadays, but also in a lot of like comedies about mob people and tough guys. And both performances are great. We have really like an origin story with Vito. He is our protagonist. He is a hero of the story, and we want to see him rise to greatness. But then we also see that fall from grace on the other side. And the film just toys with your emotions. When we see the Corleone family in the current time, everything is like in a lot of cold colors and a lot of darkness, because that's who Michael is. But when we go back to Sicily, when we go back to young Vito when he was alive, everything is in warm coloring and amber colors. Again, the cinematography behind this film is fantastic. It goes from the first Godfather film that was already incredible, and it continues here. I would say this is probably Al Pacino's best performance. One of the few performances that it felt like he was someone else for me. Other performances that I've gotten from Al Pacino over the years felt like he was playing Al Pacino, personally. All based off of really Michael in The Godfather Part II. I think this is the last like really great performance that we got of him. I say that like I've seen like all of his films, so know. I haven't seen all of his films, so I'm speaking out of my ass, basically. But that's the stance I'm going to take right now. I think this is the last great, truly great performance that we got from Al Pacino, back in 1974. And Robert De Niro, while I think he played a great version of Vito Corleone, I still think Marlon Brando was the superior version, and I don't see why Robert De Niro won the Best Supporting Academy Award for his performance here. I mean, it's good. It's really good. But I just feel like there should have been, or there could have been, another performance that year that would have been greater. And maybe that's a hot take, but it doesn't feel like Robert De Niro owned that role. It felt like it could have been played by someone else, and we would have gotten the same thing. And maybe that's the curse that that role has, in my opinion, because it was already played by someone else. I don't know, it just felt like Robert De Niro was fine, but it could have been done by any number of actors in that time. The film is definitely a tragedy, and it's a beautiful tragedy to behold. How he treats his family, how he wants his family to just kind of blindly serve him and follow him, even though really every family member has their own path and their own opinion. His wife, his sister, his brother Fredo. And then seeing that relationship between him and Fredo just completely deteriorate, and seeing that betrayal, and seeing Michael, gosh, you think he's gonna forgive him, but then he doesn't, but then he forgives him again, but then he doesn't. It's sad. It's tragic. And it makes for an awesome picture to behold. The Godfather Part II, what hasn't been said about it? The best I can do is just provide my own opinions on watching this film. Again, I think I've only seen this film twice, once before, and then once for this review, and I mean, gosh, these movies are great. The Godfather and Part 2 are just pillars in the history of movies, and they should be watched. This is definitely one of the best sequels ever created. Again, I think I would put The Godfather just slightly above it, just for the originality's sake and for that Marlon Brando performance. But Part 2 has some great parallel storylines that I just love seeing and I love watching. I'm going to give The Godfather Part 2 4.5 out of 5 Blu-rays.
It's good. It's good.
So guys, if you've seen The Godfather Part 2, what did you think about it? Or if you've never seen it before and you stumbled across it because of this video, then comment below, let me know what you thought about it. And as always, if you like what you see here, if you like my take on movies, then hit the subscribe button and make sure you hit that bell. See you all the next time I release my next movie review. So guys, I will see you next time on the channel, but in the meantime, be well, be good to each other, and go watch a movie. Take care, guys.